Hey smart people, you are about to discover 3 things top students do differently. If you do what the top students do, you can get the top grades that they get. The best part is that this has nothing to do with your natural intelligence or your IQ or just working harder. You're going to get 3 specific things you can do right now to model what the top students are doing. Now, everything in this video is backed up by plenty of research and statistical analysis, so you don't have to worry about whether it'll work for you or not. This has been proven to work for every different type of subject material and in a wide variety of countries all around the world. First, let me clear up a couple of misconceptions. Many people think that the top students are just smarter or better than you, that they have a higher IQ. Well, that's not always the case. The other thing that people get wrong is that they think top students just work harder. Well, yes, they do work hard, but by itself, that's not the answer. So stop worrying about whether you're smart enough. Yes, you're smart enough. Also, don't merely focus on only working harder. Now, the key word there is only. Of course, hard work pays off, but you must do it strategically. By the way, if you are getting benefit from what we're doing here on this channel, please be sure to subscribe, smash that like button, and hit that bell icon to be notified whenever I release a new video. Now, here are the 3 things top students do differently. Number 1, top students spend a great deal of time doing practice exams. In fact, if we were to do a statistical ranking of students from best to worst, you would see a direct relationship between how much time each student did practice exams and their results. By contrast, in the week before exams, here's what most of your classmates are doing. About 15% of them are making notes. They're going through the lessons and creating notes for the first time. About 55% are reading over or revising their notes, and another 5% are rewriting their notes. That means that approximately 75% are focused solely on making or reviewing their notes. Now, another 15% are cramming, which means that about 90% of all the students are primarily focused on memory-based activities. They're afraid that they're going to forget something. Only about 10% of students pour their time and effort primarily into doing practice exams, and those are almost always the same ones who get the top 10% of the grades. Here's just one study that helps make the case. In an educational assessment titled Practice Exams for Improved Learning, written by John A. Turris and published by Faculty Focus Higher Ed Teaching Strategies, he did a formal experiment on whether and how well students improved performance. In the fall of 2020, with 3 different classes he was teaching, government, economics, and law, those taking practice exams boosted their scores by wide margins. He wrote, "As you can see, students improved by nearly 25 percentage points from their practice test to the actual test grade in all 3 exams in all 3 classes. This is not solely reflected in the scores of a few. Nearly 90% of students did better on the actual exam than they did on the simulation. Those who took the practice quiz outperformed those who did not by an average of nearly 15 percentage points. Here's why taking practice exams are so effective." Again, from the same report. Studies show that practice exams are the best way to prepare for real exams. This is because they implement spaced retrieval practice with the learner pulling the information out of their memory when applying it to the question. And that, in turn, hardens that information in your memory. In addition, practice exams alert the student to topics that they do not fully understand and need to study before the real exam. When you come right down to it, the majority portion of most exams really don't test you on just how much you remember. Rather, they test you on how you apply what you remember. Here are a few good ways to get practice exams. Well, of course, number 1, do any and every practice quiz in your textbook. Number 2, ask your teacher or professor for copies of past exams. And number 3, do a search for free practice exams online. For example, here's a search I did for free practice exams on Anatomy and Physiology 1. You can put in any subject you want. So if you're majoring in accounting or engineering or math, you can find sample exams. You'll also see practice exams for just about every grade level and location. And this also works for those of you adult students who are taking professional certification tests. Another idea that I talked about in my video titled, Top 1% of Students Use This Test Prep Strategy, is to make up your own exam and bring it to your study group. Everybody brings an exam they made up themselves, and you will notice that your mind will go through some very beneficial analysis when you have to make up your own exam. You'll also benefit from seeing what topics and questions the others in your study group brought to the table. And this is one of the most valuable strategies that I can recommend. Here's a great quote. Don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you can't get it wrong. Do more practice exams and you'll get better grades. The second thing top students do differently is they employ self-discipline and self-motivation. In other words, they don't need someone to tell them it's time to study. When you really think about what self-discipline is, in its most simple terms, it means you must do what you know you're supposed to be doing, and you don't do what you know you're not. Top students are focused on their studies. An easy to understand way for me to explain focus is like this. Do what you're doing while you're doing it. You know how it is with most people. You're at work, dreaming about being on vacation. And then you're on vacation, dreading all the stuff that's waiting for you back at work. No. Do what you're doing while you're doing it. When it's time to study, study. That means eliminate your distractions. Turn off the ringer on your cell phone. Put it face down away from you because you don't want to be distracted by calls or texts. Close out any social media apps. Just shut them off for a while. That way, you're making the most of whatever time you spend studying. Self-discipline trumps IQ. It's nearly twice as accurate as using IQ alone in determining who becomes a top student. Self-discipline also helps you get the best results from the hard work you're doing. When you focus, you multiply your power without using any more energy. I teach about the power of focus in my 9-part series, Instant Concentration. One point I make is to imagine using a magnifying glass to burn leaves or bits of paper. Yeah, I know, some of you used to burn ants and such too. When you focus the sunlight through the magnifying glass, you multiply the power of the sun. But when you think about it, you're not using any more energy to do it. It's the same amount of sunlight. You're just focusing it, and now you can burn stuff. Your mind works the same way. Be strategic. Focus on your studies. Eliminate any distractions, and your mental power will be greatly multiplied. The third thing top students do differently is that they are organized. Like many students, they create a study schedule. They've laid out a written timetable for themselves. However, there's a powerful difference in the way they do theirs compared to others. Look, a lot of students make schedules for themselves. Unfortunately, most of them don't stick to it. The numbers shake out something like this. About half are only able to stick to their schedule for a week or less before they quit using it. About 20% stop using it within 2 weeks, and another 20% stop in less than a month. That means that only about 10% stick with their timetable for a month or longer. What's the primary reason that those 10% are able to do it? Well, it has to do with what priorities they put on their schedules. About a quarter of all the students will put in their whole workload for the week, all their classes, when they'll do homework, any study groups they belong to. Nearly 2/3, over 60%, even put specific subjects on their timetables. However, what most students don't do is that they don't put things they actually like doing on their schedule. In addition to study times, top students also schedule when they're not going to study. They'll put in their job hours if they have one, time for sports practice. But just as importantly, they also include time to socialize with friends or go out on a date. They might put in time for the gym or to go to the pool or go shoot pool at their favorite bar. Whatever. They schedule some me time. This way, they know when they're going to be rewarded with fun stuff. If you know when you're going to have the reward of some fun time, it makes disciplining yourself with study time that much easier. Here's the bottom line. If you do what successful people do, you'll get what successful people have got. The 3 things top students do differently: they do a ton of practice exams. They are self-disciplined and focused, and they are organized with their time. The idea is to model their success patterns so you can get their results. Of course, there are other differences too. Here on my channel, I get into a lot of them in my other videos. But if you start with the big 3 we covered in this video, you will see an immediate improvement in your grades. You'll reduce your stress, and you'll enjoy your life a whole lot more. Be sure to check out my other videos here on my channel, and I'll look forward to reading your comments, so be sure you post them along with any questions that you might have. As always, this is your favorite Uncle Matt, reminding you that everything I teach does take a bit of work and effort, but it's worth it. Always remember that the fastest way to get to the top is to get off your bottom.